Poets and Quants. Welcome to another webinar here in our Center Court series. We have 3 great schools and 3 incredible representatives for each of those schools. We have some familiar faces here. Sherry Hubert is certainly one of them. If you don't know Sherry, you should. She runs the admissions at Duke Fuqua and has been in the admissions field for quite some time. I think you're celebrating your 4th anniversary this month at Duke, aren't you?
I sure am. How did you remember that? Yes, tomorrow.
And not only that, we should note that Sherry is a fan of romantic and action movies, and she's especially a fan of James Bond movies. And the new James Bond movie is coming out Friday, so I bet you're excited about that, Sherry.
Yeah.
And if you want to know, and if anyone wants to know why I know these small little facts and trivia about Sherry, it's because, you know, one of the iconic questions in all of MBA admissions is 25 random things that you're meant to tell about yourself when you apply to Duke. And Sherry, when she joined Duke Fuqua 4 years ago, posted her own 25 random things. I encourage everyone out there to go on the website and look it up. It's fascinating. And I also want to welcome Kristen Mercury, who is at Yale School of Management. And Kristen's been at Yale in admissions for over 8 years now. Welcome. Great to have you.
Happy to be here.
Everyone knows and loves Bruce Delmonico, but we love you too. And then from Cleveland, we have Stephanie Nunley, who is at the Case Western School, Weatherhead School of Management. Welcome, Stephanie. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
And you're a newbie at Case Western. You've been there only a year, right?
Yes, I am a newbie, but still good. I'm just new, but good.
Okay, that's great to hear. We've had, by all accounts, a terrific admission season that led to these fall cohorts in the class of 2023. I know that at both Duke and Yale, applications were up by 12%. In both cases, your GMATs were up. I know at Case Western, you enrolled a really strong class you have a much smaller and more intimate program at the Weatherhead School. You had a great admission season as well. I wonder if you could just fill us in a little bit on the latest class that just started on campus this fall. Sherry, why don't we start with you?
Sure. In terms of just how they're doing, or
the diversity of the students, because I know that one of the proud things that you have in welcoming this new class is it's the most diverse ever in the history of the Fuqua School of Business.
That's absolutely correct. So we had our highest representation of underrepresented students in our last incoming class. 25% of the domestic population identify as either Black, Latino, Native American, or multiracial from at least one of those groups. So extremely pleased with the strength of our international student body as well. That was 37%, up from 27%. If you include students who hold dual citizenships outside the US, then the percentage goes up to 47%. So far, we continue to see strong interest from the international community looking to study in the US. So early indicators are positive. We work really closely with our international students to ensure that they were able to make it to Durham. The majority of them made it before classes started, thankfully. Everyone's on campus, as I mentioned before, well vaccinated, fully in person. And our hope is that the international students will continue to benefit from the favorable visa policies that we saw last year with the interest exception that the Homeland Security put in place, so that they'll be able to arrive this year as well. So far, so good. We're really excited about the diversity of this class. It's one of our largest classes too, and for it to be as diverse as it is, including women.
I believe it's the second largest MBA class you've ever enrolled. The first was back in 2015, I think. That's
correct. Yeah, it's the second largest. Now, I should say that.
Sherry, you forgot one very important point about the diversity of your class, your record number of women.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so
okay.
in addition to the the diversity in terms of racial background and ethnicity, we also were really pleased to have our highest representation of women. We're at 48%. And so, you know, we're shooting for that 50% for next year, for this coming year. So that's what we're really focused on. And you're right, it was our second largest class since 2015. I think our sweet spot, though, will probably be around 435. So, you know, it was a little high as a result of some of our deferrals. And we were really fortunate and be able to retain most of our deferrals, which helped with the numbers. But yeah, I think this year we're looking at about a class size of around 435 or so.
Yeah, that's great. And Kristen, I'm assuming that you also had a bounce back in internationals. I mean, all the schools were down largely due to travel restrictions, difficulty in getting student visas the previous year. Mm-hmm. Now, what does your international student population look like in this new class?
Yeah, it's bounced back to what we would traditionally see. So we're about 44% international passport holders. I think last year it was around 40%. So we saw a bit of a dip, but we were able to minimize our deferrals. And for the most part, the vast majority of our international students were able to make it to campus last year, and then certainly this year. I think last year there were maybe around 30 students at large who were not physically present in New Haven at orientation. But even those students, most of them were on campus by January. So Yale, you know, atmospherically, Yale University has done an incredible job of preserving the in-person experience and working with our students very closely to make sure that we're aware of their situations. We're clearly and often communicating and trying to keep things as normal and steady as possible in a highly volatile time.
And what about your gender splits this year?
Yeah, about 43% women. Yeah, and which is, I think, maybe a touch. I mean, maybe we were around 45 last year or in previous years. I mean, if you look at a 5-year stretch, it's never the same every year. So you have some modest shifts up and down, but, you know, like Sherry, and I'm sure all schools were looking for that 50-50, which I think we attained once in the past, but we're still happy with representation this year. In looking at US underrepresented students of color, 20% of this year's class is underrepresented, which is really wonderful. And one of the stats that we like to share is first gen. About 1 in 10 of our students, our MBA students, are first generation college grads.
Great.
Exciting to share. And then I think another stat maybe unique to Yale, we like to share a joint degree. Percentages, you know, it's usually upwards of maybe 10 to 15%. We're around 10% this year. So our students kind of benefit from not only going out, if you're familiar with our curriculum, the second year, then go out and take electives anywhere at Yale, but many of them go much deeper and earn a second degree in medicine or law, or, you know, I think there are 10 choices for a joint degree.
Great. And I know you enrolled a class of 349.
That's right.
Duke was at record 470, almost a record 477. And then at Weatherhead, we have a small intimate program. Tell us about your incoming class, Stephanie.
So our incoming class, we hit where our target is. We usually try to keep our class size around 40 to 50 students, and we hit right around that number. We had a very well-balanced cohort. When we talk about international versus domestic, we were very thrilled to have a 50-50 ratio for that, as well as being able to get all of the international students here. You know, that was one of the goals we had with having a remote start last year. It was really important that we could actually get those students onto campus and in person. As far as the breakdown for women, we did reach 40% representation of women in the cohort, which was really awesome for us. And we are around 15% underrepresented minorities across our MBA suite. Another statistic that we like to sort of gauge, because we are very much pro-veteran, we like to point out that we did have at least 10% representation of veterans across our MBA suite. So it was really successful on those fronts. And COVID was a huge factor, of course, in people's decisions to come here. But we tried to make that as easy as possible for students to make it to our campus. So yeah, it worked out pretty good.
Terrific. Thanks, Stephanie. GMATs have gone up at a lot of schools. I think at Duke, the average GMAT went up 11 points. At Yale, I think it went up something like 6 points. I know the median stayed the same, Sherry, at Duke, and I know you don't emphasize standardized test scores, but I wonder if you could tell the audience why you think GMAT scores in general are going up this year, almost at all the schools, frankly. I wonder if it's because people had more time to study for the GMAT over the pandemic time frame, if the applicant pool is any different for any reason, or if because of deferments and things in the previous year where international students had more trouble getting into US schools, maybe that lowered GMATs and made the increase this year look a little more dramatic than it really is. What's your sense of that?
Good question. I would say, first of all, let me just clarify. We had a class size of 447 as opposed to 477.
Oh, yes. Okay, 447.
Right. I think I can kind of speak in terms of what we were thinking of. And like you said, we focus on, the GMAT is not, or the test taking is not kind of one parameter, but it's not the end all. And so we think that in terms of the growth of the increase that we saw was a reflection of the fact that we offered people more choices, right? So we offered them the ability to take the GMAT, the GRE, or the executive assessment. And so I think you're right, people had more time to study. More of these tests were provided online, so they were more accessible. Because we offered 3 different options, people had the ability to take the option that they felt that they could perform the best in. And so therefore, we probably did benefit from folks who felt so they could perform best in the GMAT, taking the GMAT. And there were other options for people who needed to take wanted to take the GRE or the executive assessment. There's probably a lot of different reasons and rationale. Our median was the same. So even though there were, a few more folks who did better, a few more folks who did worse, on the GMAT, at least the median was pretty similar to what prior years were. We saw, about the same percentage of people taking the GRE, perhaps slightly lower than prior years. So again, I think perhaps more people did take the GMAT as well. But again, I think these 3 options that they had just made it even more, it made it easier for people to really focus on the test that they perform the best in.
Yeah, I know that 33% of your incoming class submitted a GRE. I'm curious, how many submitted an executive assessment?
Oh, I have the numbers off the top of my head.
I would think it's in single digits because it's a relatively new part of the policy.
Below 10%,
Yeah, exactly.
Still growing. So. And because we've accepted that this is now going to be our 3rd year accepting it. So.
Right. And Kristen, you're at a 730 median, which is equivalent to the Harvard Business School. Mm-hmm. What do you think is behind this recent rise in GMAT scores overall? Not only at Yale, but every school. You think it's part more? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Sherry's point, and I think you alluded to, there's probably more than one factor. I think, we saw an uptick in the size of the applicant pool, and my sense is that there are candidates who last year either were being more cautious and waited in 2020 to apply the following year, or who simply didn't have the ability financially or visa-wise to apply and enroll in a program. So we saw a very rich applicant pool this year of candidates who were very prepared, maybe the year before, candidates who had maybe additional time to retake a test. But it was an incredibly strong pool. But I do think it's worth noting that these are still modest fluctuations. There was no earth-shattering, significant change. These are not unlike some of the fluctuations we see for other reasons in the history of our programs.
I think the other important point to make, because a lot of people do get hung up on standardized test scores.
Right.
I think it's important to remind everyone that in MBA admissions, it truly is a holistic process, that it's one data point and only one data point, and you consider many in assessing the quality of a candidate.
That's right. And I think it's difficult for us as schools, and we have to post our class profiles. And there's a lot of chatter, about those class profiles and those numbers.
And I know
And
we
it
can
really,
get into that.
sure, but it really isn't a numbers game. And I think it's very easy for the audience to think or to become anxious about these really significant, like the 730 median, that's high. We like to point candidates to our 80% range, which is, I think, more helpful. But to your point, there's no golden ticket. The 780 is not a golden ticket, and we look very favorably upon candidates with the 640, for example. So it's really one piece of the pie, and it doesn't tell much of the story, which we're very much interested in.
Yeah, and in your incoming class, I think 36% of the students submitted a GRE, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that for us is normally high, especially with the joint degree candidates. But we have seen an uptick just in recent history of candidates submitting the GRE.
And Stephanie, do you have a standardized test waiver at Weatherhead?
Yes, we actually do. And that goes right to your point where we're looking at candidates holistically. So with COVID, we did notice that a lot of our candidates were having trouble or issues actually taking the GRE or GMAT or sitting for those tests. So we do have a test optional situation at Weatherhead. So students can take the option of taking it. It does increase their application a little bit, but really we are not using that as a factor in our decision making at this time. As far as an admissions decision, you can get one without a GRE or GMAT. It may influence scholarship though. So students have opted to take it, and we have seen that the scores that have come from that have been higher than usual. So, but to that point, it is a very holistic process. We're looking at the applicants as a whole. And this year, moving forward for fall 2022, we're also continuing with that test optional platform. So for students out there.
So Stephanie, when you evaluate a candidate, what's the first thing you look at in the application? You look at the resume. Do you look at the hobbies on the resume? Do you read the essay first? How do you attack it?
So it may be a little bit different for me. I actually meet with almost every applicant that actually applies, every candidate for our admission, before we even get to reviewing their applications, and even before the interview process. So I kind of know these people a little bit more intimately than I think. And again, with the small size of our cohort, I'm able to do that. So I look for the name first. Who's this person? Do I remember having a conversation with them? Oh yeah, this is so-and-so who I told to apply the other day. And then it just follows up with what the conversations I have with those people were. So I think for me, I'm looking to just say, okay, yeah, I already know all of these things because we've had conversations about some of the things that are going to come up in the application process. And so I'm looking at the resume for the work experience, but these are all piggybacking off of conversations that I've previously had. So,
right.
Yeah.
Now, Sherry, do you zero in on something initially?
When I'm looking at some applicant's resume or CV, I like to see progression between jobs. And so I'm looking at how much time have they spent in a given role. I like to understand the rationale behind why they left one position to pursue another position. And in doing so, I review their resume for the new skills that they may have gained at this new opportunity from the subsequent opportunity or the subsequent role that they played. And how do these new skills prepare them for the rigor of a business program like Fuqua, for instance. I also look for gaps in their work experience, and I'm hoping that then they kind of are self-aware enough to explain those gaps in the optional essay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Kristen, at Yale, is there one thing you focus in right away on?
No, I don't think we zero in on one particular piece of the application. We certainly kind of have a cadence in which we work through the application. It's, to the points about the resume, that's the blueprint, that's kind of the foundation and gives us almost a roadmap to the story. And then the rest of the application kind of fill in the gaps and help tell that story. But I think the resume is a really good jumping off point. I do think it's worth mentioning that, there are resume templates readily available for candidates. You'd be surprised how many candidates, in trying to fit their work and educational and other experience into one page, we'll go down to the 8-point font, lose the margins. And I can tell you, we still have a human admissions committee. And when I look at that resume, especially if it's the first thing I view, I can have a visceral response to just the formatting. And when you cram so much information into one page or over multiple pages, it invites skimming, right? And it makes it harder for me as a reader to understand what points of the resume are really important. Where are the transitions? To Sherry's point, where are the gaps? What is the trajectory? It's very hard to tease that out when it's just difficult to read. So I think it's maybe worth mentioning that we all have resumes, but it is worth a little extra attention in not only what you include, but how you format and present your resume.
Yeah, that's great. Each school has its own way of assessing candidates, and each school has slightly different requirements. So, at Weatherhead, you have one essay question, although if you go to your webpage, you'll find that there are 5 different ways you can probably answer it. At Yale, a central part of the admissions process is now the video interview questions. And as I mentioned earlier, at Duke, there's that iconic 25 random things questions. So I wonder if you could tell me how these differences reflect your selections process. So is there a secret sauce? Is there something different, do you think, about how you admit an MBA candidate than other schools? Sherry, why don't we start with you?
All right, just go right in there, John.
What's your secret sauce?
What's our secret sauce? Well, I think, one of the things that is really important to us to be able to provide as many opportunities as possible for applicants to get to know us. So, one of the things that we do offer are we call open interview opportunities. So they're self-initiated by the prospective student or the applicant. And we really believe the interview is such a unique way to really engage and allow the applicant to get to know us and us to get to know them in their own voice. And so we have an open interview process. We make sure that if you first come, first serve, if you sign up for that, it's your interview. And so regardless of when you apply, it will be attached to your application. Our interviews are a little unique as well in that they're conducted by our second-year students. We call them admissions fellows. And it's, again, the structure and style is much more behavioral and conversational. We believe that our students are the best ambassadors and can really connect with our prospective students and give us true sense, the realest sense of what the experience is going to be like. And so we, and it's a very student-driven culture. And so we equip and empower our students to be able to play this kind of significant role in bringing in the next new class in terms of the interview component of it. And so for us, it's really about the connection, especially given the uniqueness of Team Fuqua and the fact that it's real. And so we really need to be able to understand how someone will not only gain from this experience, but also contribute to our community in a unique way in order to continue to enhance and reinforce the ethos of Team Fuqua. And so for us, I think it's that human connection and all the different opportunities that we allow for applicants to get to know our students, for our students to play an active role in helping us bring in the next class as well. I think that's kind of the unique way in which we go about our process.
Yeah. Kristen, how about you at Yale?
Sure. Yeah. Secret sauce. It's hard to answer that question. But I would say that we do put a lot of care and thought into our admissions process. And I've worked at another school. I have a sense for how these things can work. And we try to be as thorough and thoughtful and understand context. So we have significant training of our admissions officers in reading files, and each file gets 2 independent sets of eyes. A third perspective comes in if there's an interview, which is required of all admitted students. And we have a real committee, like we get together on Zoom or used to be in the conference room, and we talk about everyone. And So what we're really looking for is three things. One, academic preparedness. We need to know that candidates can be successful with the rigor of Yale's education. And the second is professional impact, right? And I think candidates should take comfort in knowing those two things carry a lot of weight, because that's where they've invested most of their time over a long period of time, right? Your academic preparedness and your work experience. And the third piece is really looking to find good community members. And honestly, sometimes that can be very easy to tease out in an application. Sometimes it can be the very hardest thing to tease out. But we're also looking for that color, and that is important to us. You mentioned the video questions. I do think it's worth talking, if I could, or maybe this will come up later, about the behavioral assessment, which is unique to Yale. I think there are, a number of schools now using video questions. For us, it's not an interview. It's really adding more of a three-dimensional voice to the application. But the newest development in our application is the behavioral assessment, which is a non-cognitive tool that we've developed in conjunction in partnership with ETS, the maker of GRE. And it's really looking at measuring a specific set, specific to Yale and the high performers at Yale, the inter and intrapersonal competencies that those successful business school students have had. We're looking for those in our candidates. And, it's not a standardized test. And it's really additive in this process, where we might find, we use it in our academic profile. So in collaboration with looking at transcripts and test scores, we have this scientific, quantitatively based tool versus kind of a feeling or an impression. This also goes into assessing soft skills and community fit, right? Are candidates going to show up? Are they going to do the work? Those intangible skills. And so this has been a great addition to our process, and something that we find is, it's not a make or break, but it's certainly additive when you see candidates who might have softer traditional academic profiles, but nonetheless would be incredible members of our community and our classroom experience.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because only yesterday I was having a conversation with someone from ETS who I met personally on of all places at UC Davis, who was talking to me about that assessment tool. And I wonder, how long does it take someone to fill that out?
I've done it myself. It's about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I can tell you, it feels a little awkward. It's if you ever taken and it's not a Myers-Briggs or a DISC assessment, so to be clear, but it feels that way in the sense where, it's forced choice. You have two responses. My favorite color is red. My favorite color is blue. Well, maybe your favorite color is green, but you need to make a choice, right? And so you kind of go through, I think it's about 40 questions, forced choice module. And at the end, you don't really know, how that reflects upon you, but you submit it. So the nice thing is there's no preparation involved. And you could also take confidence that this is, again, scientifically based, quantitatively based, and specifically looking at skills that we have identified in our most successful business school students.
Now, I'm told that it more closely coincides with a measurement of soft skills. Would you agree with that or not?
Yes, I don't know if I would say it more closely, because we specifically looked at our high academic performers at Yale SOM. So I think it is a nice reflection of both their academic. So I see it as part of their academic profile in reading an application. And then I think that bleeds into the community piece and the soft skills.
Right. Okay, Stephanie, your secret sauce. What are the ingredients that you're looking for to make the magic happen?
Oh man, so after hearing about that algorithm, it's just that assessment thing sounds really crazy, like fascinating. No, I think the secret sauce for us, again, as a much smaller school, is that we have that one-on-one connection with the students. I think that having a chance to, we can look at your resume, we can look at your transcripts and see how prepared you are for the rigor of our program through some of those things, through testing and whatnot. But the developing and sort of looking at you through an interview and through like the soft skills process we're looking at you as a person. Like when we talk to our applicants, we want to know who they are as people. We want to know that they're, confident and can hold a conversation and can have what I like to call grit. We're looking for applicants who have gone through things and can actually, pick themselves up and carry on, because life is hard. The MBA program is not going to be great every day. But there are going to be times when you fail and you have to get back up and continue on. That's what we're looking for in our applicants, not only to get through the program, but also to get through life. So I kind of take a more personal approach. So I think our secret sauce here at CASE is that we have that personal sort of one-on-one connection with students through the application process. And we really do try to get to know them as an individual.
So what would your graduates tell me about the things in the MBA program that they admired the most, that really made an impact for them at the Weatherhead School of Management? Oh,
okay. So, well, I will say for sure it would be that one-on-one access that they have, not only to myself, but also to faculty. Because our program is so small, our faculty do have a very open door policy. They're very engaged with all of our students to the extent of almost too much engagement, as some students may say. But I think that would be one of the really big sort of selling points that our alumni would say was really great. I would also say that our alumni network, and we have set up one-to-one peer alumni network mentorship program between our alumni and our current students that sort of help to cater them and push them along through to the careers that they're looking to get into. And then I would also say, another thing I would say that students would say highlight as like the best part of our program is I always say this, is our location. People discount Cleveland, but Cleveland is a great city. And it's like I mentioned to you earlier, it's a small enough city to where you don't get, you can enjoy everything, but it's not so big that you get lost in everything. So I think those would be sort of the three things that our students take away from the program and say, these were transformative experiences for me.
And the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Exactly. Cleveland rocks.
Now, Sherry, you used a term earlier in our conversation that I'm very familiar with, but some of the audience may not be, and that's Team Fuqua, which is really central to the school's MBA culture. Can you explain what that really means?
Sure, yeah. So Team Fuqua is a way of working that brings out the strengths in others in order to have that team or move towards a common goal or common purpose. And it's an ethos that we have. It's interesting as you were asking the question about what are the three things that our alums might think about, I think many of our graduates tell us that they didn't believe that Team Fuqua was real. Even as an administrator, I probably didn't think I thought it was really brandy, but it really defines the culture. And it is, because it's such a student-driven culture as well, it's really integral to the way in which we work, the way in which we treat each other, the respect that we give. And it's not just students, it's faculty, it's staff, it's the entire community. Every Friday we have what we call Fuqua Friday, where the entire community, school gets together in our common center to really just commune with each other. We have six different paired principles, and one is called supportive ambition. So it's really, this notion of working towards common purpose, bringing others along with you, being decent in the way in which we do it, in which we treat each other, ensuring that people find belonging and thrive and aren't just fitting in. And really all of this, culminates into what we call Team Fuqua. Some people, until they experience it, they don't really know what that is. For an example, we talk a lot about, the job prospects and recruiting, and our students really helping each other, who, even if they're competing for the same particular opportunity. But another instance where it might show up is had a student who, the night before their first year core accounting exam, his puppy ran away. We're very dog-driven culture as well. And the entire section decided to help this individual look for their dog instead of studying for their accounting exam the night before. It goes to show that, people are there for each other, right? When times are tough, when it's unexpected. they're not looking for acknowledgement or, you know, anything. They do, right? When there's someone in need. And I think that's kind of the essence of Team Fuqua. We all support each other. We all, you know, you win, I win, but you know, I don't win at your expense. You don't win at my expense. It's that kind of culture that I think really permeates the entire institution, which is just really wonderful, right? It really is a secret sauce for us.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy for someone who hears the word teamwork and collaboration at every school to completely understand what it means. But I will say that in all the schools I've visited over many years, Fuqua is unique in teaching that group decisions and respecting the opinions of others in coming to some sort of conclusion about a decision leads to a better decision, always. And I've never really heard that as emphatically at any other school as I've heard that at Duke. It's almost like that is a core teaching of that MBA program that you're at. And I think that makes it unique, but that's one of three things. What would you say the other two things are that people go away with and say, man, I wish I had more of that?
Yeah, I also think that this notion that Team Fuqua is soft, it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean it's soft. It means that we hold each other accountable, right? It's not that just folks are just nice to each other or this kumbaya culture. We absolutely hold each other accountable. One of the things that it made me think about was this notion of inclusion as well, right? It's not just bringing the strengths out of bringing each other's strengths out, and in the process it brings out your own strengths, but it's also this notion of embracing difference and not being afraid of it, right? And as a team, in order for teams to actually be that much more productive, they need to be diverse teams. And so another, I think, unique quality of Fuqua is this notion of embracing difference. We have a number of different activities that we engage our students. Actually, our students are really driving these activities and organizing them. We have daring dialogues on, you know, race, allyship, alcoholism, mental health, sexual assault prevention, imposter syndrome. All of our students in the first year core go through implicit bias training. They all go through intersectionality workshops. We have thought leadership. We have restorative justice circles on politics. You know, thought leader lunches on mental health. So again, it's this notion of inclusion and building towards better leadership skills in a way that drives towards common purpose, especially in a divided world, right? I always say that business school is a microcosm of real life. And so you're gonna encounter all the same challenges that you do in real life in business school, and how do you meet those challenges and rise above them and then actually manage through them. We give our students these real opportunities to do that so that they're that much stronger when they get on the other side.
Yeah, and I should point out, you know, almost all schools now have made diversity, equity, and inclusion a priority of their cultures, their admissions processes. And I just want to say, I think this is an important note, given what you just said, that while it's crucial to have the right mix of people from different cultures and different places and gender and racial and ethnic diversity, it's just as important, if not more important, that everyone in that community feels valued and respected, because without that, diversity doesn't mean a whole lot.
That's exactly right, and that's really Team Fuqua, right? And that's this notion of decency that you know you've heard our dean talk about, that we actually look for it through the admissions process. You know, understanding whether or not someone has done the harder right, whether or not someone understands that, you know, you have to not only be on the team, but you have to feel belonging, right? In order to get the best out of others as well, and you have to be thinking about others' best interest and having that best interest at heart as well. So I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
Kristen, what are the three magical things that people leave Yale with?
Three magical things. So I think unfailingly, the alumni point to the community first. I don't think that's unique to Yale. As you're hearing, the community is always the first thing the alums talk with the people and the experience. I think the examples they may provide or cite are maybe a little, or feel a little bit different across schools. I think that You know, at Yale, we really do live the mission, which is to educate leaders for business and society. It's in our DNA. And it's faculty, students, staff, alumni. And you really do get a sense for that in the community, through the education. It really does inform everything that we do. We do place a high value on integration. If you look at our integrated curriculum, but also our community. So speaking of community, we tend to attract candidates who have broad interests and want to go to a business school where they can pursue their path, but also learn about other things that might be interesting to them. And our students tend to take an interest and even invest in their peers' pursuits. So you might have a finance professional who also ends up sitting on a nonprofit board, for example. The internship fund is a wonderful example of our community and how others take an interest, a vested interest in the community's pursuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that kind of leading there. I think a couple other things I tend to hear a lot about in regards to the experience is the hands-on experience that our MBA students have with companies. You know, if you look at YCCI discovery projects, we have students working with Google and others on real projects with actual executives. Those are highly sought after projects and really impactful. Oftentimes informing internships, for example, and full-time offers. Nonprofit board fellows is an experience I hear a lot about in the community, where our students have the opportunity to sit on the board of a New Haven or Greater New Haven nonprofit. And again, that's real. Those are real conversations, real decisions, real implications. And so I think that's those types of experiences that we offer are often recalled when you have an alumni panel or you're meeting with community members. I think the third I might mention is it's a little awkward to mention at the moment because we can't travel, but in a pre-pandemic world and hopefully post-pandemic soon, our students have an unmatched opportunity to have global experiences. In a non-pandemic world, we'd have 50 to 60 different global experience opportunities each year for our students to choose from on 5 different platforms and through the global network of schools, as well as our own Yale faculty hosted trips. So our MBA students at Yale end up going abroad 2 or 3 times. And you often hear stories that have an academic flair or a social flair or community flair in talking about those experiences as well. And we very much miss the global travel and look forward to getting back to that.
Now, I know everyone recommends that applicants to given schools visit the campus. And in this lingering pandemic, I wonder if that's still possible. Stephanie, if I want to apply to the Weatherhead School, can I come and check it out? Or am I not allowed on campus because of the pandemic?
Nope, you are 100% allowed to come, and I will take you around personally. That's one of the promises I guarantee students. We do have a lot of policies in place that are here for people's safeties. So we do check that you're vaccinated. We also do require that you're wearing a mask when indoors or in any enclosed space. But I've conducted a lot of on-campus site visits, my meetings outdoors. We have a beautiful campus and plenty of outdoor seating to accommodate that. But yeah, we definitely can accommodate tours on campus as well. So
great. And Sherry, can a visiting person come to Fuqua today with a mask, being fully vaccinated?
So we of course welcome folks. We do require that you be vaccinated. We are trying to put in place kind of parameters around being able to really confirm that. At this point, our events are virtual. Our interviewing is virtual because we also want to make sure that there's a level playing field for everyone. But, literally, John, we are in the process of discussing. I'm literally having a meeting after this meeting.
How about that? I must be reading your mind.
But for now, everything is virtual, but we are absolutely in the process of looking at how do we open safely with the best timing to be able to welcome.
Great. And Kristen, are you primarily online in terms of admissions as well?
Yeah, I'm sorry, John, I cannot invite you to New Haven at the moment. We are doing our very best to preserve the in-person, in-residence experience. And so we have many things in place to do that. And one of those is not hosting prospective students inside the building. We have been able to get some, exceptions for visiting executives and et cetera, but we're not hosting any on-campus events for prospective students. But I think it's really worth mentioning lessons learned through this. This way of recruiting and connecting with prospective students has really democratized the process. As someone who has I have kind of ownership over our recruiting and outreach at the School of Management. It's been interesting to see how the reach has improved. And now, you don't have to have the money and the time off of work to come visit our school. We would love for you to do that in the future. And it would be a great opportunity for you. There, some people don't have that opportunity. Or they don't up front and they have to wait to see where they're admitted, et cetera. And, in-person events, maybe you didn't live near a major city in the world, a Shanghai, a London, a San Francisco. And so you didn't have the opportunity to come see us in San Francisco, And so in the past, how many months, everyone has equal access. And I love that. I wish they could all be in our building, but everyone has, if they want to talk to me, they can see me in one of our Q&As. If they want to talk to our current students, they can log in. They don't have to travel, and to spend money. Everyone has equal access, which is something I think is incredibly valuable. And I look, to continuing in the future.
Yeah,
even after we open our doors.
I think the pandemic has done that, and I think it's not going to go away.
Right.
People will be able to reach out virtually, and it's really very helpful. Stephanie, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, and I just wanted to sort of piggyback on that too. You can come and visit me if you like, but you can also see me virtually as well. It's just been an addition to our virtual campaigning as well here at Case. I do see more students now virtually, and our tours are one-on-one. So it wouldn't be a big crowd of people that I would allow to come here. And we do have information sessions that are online as well. But yeah, it is very safe. That is how we've been doing it. We now have a hybrid model, and I think that we actually get to see more students now that we have that availability of the virtual world to meet in these sorts of Zoom conversations as well. So.
Okay, one last thing, but we're running out of time, but I want each of you to answer this question, and I think it's a weird question. It's almost like a 25 random things kind of question. What do you love most about your job? Sherry.
I do love my job. I love the fact that I get to see, I benefit from the value of an MBA. It's been so instrumental, pivotal in my career, my life. And I used to be on the back end, kind of helping recruit students into corporations coming out of schools. So now I love being on this front end to help them realize the same kind of dreams and goals and aspirations that perhaps they didn't realize was even in their future through the pursuit of an MBA. So I'm a huge evangelist for the value of an MBA. And I really enjoy seeing the progression and the transformation that students have from the moment that they even have this inkling in their mind that this is a degree that would be right for them, to then becoming an alum and all the wonderful things that they'll do as a result of the impact that they'll have on society. So for me, it's just seeing that progression and that transformation and the confidence that the degree builds in individuals. Yeah,
that's really true. Kristen, how about you?
Yeah, it's similar. So in my former life, my former career, now 13 years ago, I coached college volleyball. I coached college volleyball for 10 years at Boston College and Dartmouth, and I was tasked with assessing and evaluating talent and then creating this amazing opportunity for young student athletes to come to a great school and develop as women leaders, et cetera, et cetera. And I still enjoy that piece of this work in assessing talent and identifying future leaders of the world. And I find the work very inspiring, specifically because MBA programs invite such diverse applicant pools from all over the world, all industries, all different voices and experiences. And I again, this is 13 years in this work, and I still find I get excited for the first week of reading because it's just inspiring to me. The diversity of the pool. So I very much enjoy the work in that way.
Terrific. Stephanie, what do you love most about what you're doing?
Oh my gosh. So as you all know what I'm going to say, I really do love the interpersonal communication and contact that I am able to have with, like she said, the next leaders of the world. It's pretty similar to Sherry. I have an MBA, and so I'm a true convert of the value of an MBA. I love sharing my experiences with them, as well as learning what other people are looking forward to getting into. Helping students achieve their goals is one of the reasons why I'm in higher education. You know, we have our MBAs here, and it's not a normal path to be in higher education with an MBA. So it really is a passion of mine to sort of help students get to that next point in their careers and their lives. So, you know, and getting to know them and see their individual stories is really, really amazing. So, yeah.
So here's what we all share. We're all passionate believers in the value of the degree.
Yes.
And how it can transform a life and make a difference. And I love that. So I want to thank all three of you for joining me today. I can't believe we're already out of time. It went so fast. Sherry, always a pleasure to see you, really. What a joy to see that wonderful smile of yours. Kristen, always a pleasure as well. Thank you for joining us. And Stephanie, great to see you at Case Western. Thank you all for sharing your insights and your thoughts. Really appreciate it. And your passion. All right. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.